What's happening, YouTube? Back in the day gamer here. Thanks for tuning into my channel, and today I'm coming at you with a video that has literally been years in the making. Not only is this topic the reason I started making YouTube videos, but it's the reason I started watching YouTube videos. And that is none other than my Nintendo Entertainment System Top 20. Right off the bat, I want to start off by saying, like everyone else does, this is my list. But I'm not going to apologize. And I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to agree with a lot of this list. And no one else is even going to come close to the same list that I have. I'm not going to give any honorable mentions, but I am going to tell you something that you will not like. This game is not going to have any Mega Man, Castlevania, or Super Mario. You will see none of that here.
What?
Yeah, spoiler. Well, the reason you're not going to see them is because they're not in my top 20. Many of those games are fantastic. Some of them would be in the 20s, but they're not in this video, so we're not going to talk about it. But the only mention I will make of any Super Mario, other than what I already did, is that I want to give recognition to the OG Super Mario Brothers, because that is literally the game that changed everything and put the Nintendo Entertainment System in all of our houses.
Yeah!
The game itself is completely fucking awesome, but the reason it's not on my list, doesn't make my top 20, is because I have played it so many times, it's just burned out. I mean, it deserves to be in here, but I really hardly ever play it, just because I have played it so many times. Much like all of you. So let's get into this. Before I reveal this first game, I want to remind everyone that Back in the Day Gamer is an RPG, action RPG kind of guy. So that is going to lend some more uniqueness to this video. Without further ado, let's get rolling. The first game here is what I consider to be the last actual hidden gem on the Nintendo. I know, right? In the age of social media and everything on their phones, how can there be a hidden gem left? There is, and it's this one right here. It's a fantastic game. I am blown away that no one ever talks about it, because it's really, really good. And that game is none other than the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons game, Radiance. I picked this game up way back in the day, because even before I had it on my Nintendo, I had it on my IBM. Yes, sir, this is one of those gold box Dungeons & Dragons games. Possibly the reason you don't hear much about it is it's a very complex, in-depth game. It's a turn-based RPG, requires a lot of grinding and level up. There's tons of weapon and armor upgrades, lots of different spells. It is true to the Dungeons & Dragons experience. Its major downfall is that it's a first-person dungeon crawler, but they added the greatest element of all to take it from shit to hit: the overhead map view. Yeah, these first-person dungeon crawlers suck so bad normally because everything looks the fucking same and you get lost all the time. Unless you're gonna bust out the graph paper like I've been doing with Phantasy Star on the Master System, you're not gonna enjoy this game very much. But the adding of the on-screen grid map really changed it. And that is just one of the many reasons Radiance cracks my top 20 NES games. Number 19, DuckTales. No, I'm just kidding. I actually fucking hate this game, and I can't believe everyone loves it so much, and it makes me sick that it's on everyone's list. I think it's terrible, it controls terrible, the pogo mechanic is stupid, and I hate it. Yeah. But a game I don't hate, number 19, Eliminator Boat Duel. This is the newest to me game on the list. I'd never heard of this game back in the day, but it is a ton of fun. It's a speedboat racing game with RPG power-up mechanics. Now, right off the bat, that doesn't sound like very much fun, no. But it's got super addicting gameplay. The controls are super tight. It's just got the right amount of difficulty, but it's not too hard, it's not too easy. Paired with the comedy, with the adult humor in some parts, it puts this one on the map for me. You probably won't have too much trouble playing through this game until you get to the end, where they really force you to not make many mistakes and ramp up the difficulty. But that only made me like it all the more. I am by no means a racing game kind of guy. Love me some Mario Kart, but other than that, not so much. Now, Eliminator Boat Duel was a ton of fun, but a game I find even more fun than that is Formula One Built to Win. I'm wagering most of you have also never heard of Built to Win. I myself probably wouldn't have stumbled along to it if it wasn't for my friend Brian's older brother Craig, who was a total dick and used to beat us up. But sometimes he bought video games, and when he wasn't home, we'd play them, and this is one of the games we played. Now I understand why no one ever talks about Pool Radiance, because it's a hardcore, in-depth, turn-based, first-person, 8-bit RPG. But this is a racing game which is generally a popular genre, with fantastic graphics for the time, very, very tight controls. It's got, once again, something I really like, RPG power-up mechanics, and fast-paced fun. I'm guessing another reason you don't hear a lot about this game is because later on, it gets brutally, controller-breakingly frustrating. That being said, the difficulty wasn't enough to turn me off because I was determined to beat this game as I've been playing it since way back in the game. And as an RPG guy, I found it fun that you could grind for cash and soup up your ride. I also found it cool that you could hit the slots in Vegas to try and score some cash to make your car built to win. Here is a game many of you expected to be much higher on my list. It's a great game, I love it. The reason it isn't higher is because this is not a pick up and play game, not at all. But it is a fun game. Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy was simply a game changer. I'd always been into things like Dungeons & Dragons, so now for the first time ever, it was on my TV in video game form. My friend Brian, whose dickhead older brother used to beat us up and had Built to Win, that lived across the street from me, had it, and I remembered having fun just watching him play it. He used to log monster stats, and he made a monster manual to help play through the game. So aside from it being sword and sorcery, it even brought the Dungeons and Dragons element sort of to life. And spoiler alert, the reason I chose Final Fantasy and not Dragon Warrior was for two reasons. One, Dragon Warrior does not hold up as well. Having to go into a subscreen and select stairs to climb stairs is fucking stupid. And two, I still have yet to play through Dragon Warrior 2, 3, and 4, so that's why I chose Final Fantasy. Moving on to what will probably be the oddest choice for this list, Spelunker. Nostalgia, what can I say? This was really my very first Nintendo game. I always found it fun. The controls are just murder to get used to. They are tight and all, but this is one of those games where you can't fall more than half the size of your sprite's body length, or you die, and that takes a lot of getting used to. But once you do, it's a good time. The graphics and colors are good. You have lots of items and weapons for a game this simple. The timer or oxygen meter mechanic is cool. It always keeps you rushing, which will be the reason for most deaths. But to this day, the thing that sticks out most to me about this game is the simple, yet can't get out of your head soundtrack. Number 15 on the list is a staple in everyone my age's library. It was a thing most of us did. It was a thing that most of us dreamed it would be like. They even made a movie about it. And that game is the totally rad movie, Rad. And that game is none other than the legendary Paperboy. Okay, so don't let me lose you because you're like, Pool Radiance, Spelunker, Paperboy. These games suck, he's dumb. Hear me out here, okay? Sure. Is this game awesome? Not really. But how many hours do you think you spent playing it back in the day? Graphically, it's not even very pleasing. It's probably been a long time since you actually played it, right? But pop it into the old gray toaster, and I challenge you not to have fun. And now you're thinking, maybe this old man back in the day gamer is onto something. What will he pick next? I'm gonna beg you one more time not to leave and finish hearing me out. Because the next game on my list is probably not popular with a lot of you either. Back to the Future. So if you're not my age, I'm probably starting to lose you, but give me a second, right? Back to the Future. When this movie came out, Back to the Future was everything. Just movies, everybody wanted to skateboard. There's not really even that much skateboarding in the movie. You just, shirts, everything. Back to the Future was so huge. If you weren't around in that era, you might not even be able to understand it. But Back to the Future was consuming. It's a fantastic movie, and the game is absolutely not fantastic, but I really like it. Back to the Future is on the lower spectrum of NES stuff. Now, it doesn't have as addicting gameplay as Paperboy in general, but to me it does. I've always liked it. I used to go over to my friend Eric's house. He didn't have a big Nintendo library, and this was one of the games we popped in a lot. Now, we seldomly got past probably Lou's Cafe, which is one of my favorite boards of all Nintendo games. But I remember it was always a good time passing the controller around, playing this. I always really liked how you didn't really have deaths. Yeah, you had lives and deaths, but you could die a ton of times on one board as long as you got to the end before the pictures or your timer ran out. And I know a lot of people hate this game, but that's not really justified. The hate is not real. The graphics aren't great, but the controls are. The soundtrack is terrible, but all in all, the game is fun. And I once again want to remind you that this is my list. And I'll put on it whatever the hell I want. Now it's controversy time. I know I've been begging you to stay, don't leave yet, but now this is the last one that's really going to question why you're watching this video and if you're going to unsub to my channel or not. But, game before this, LJN, Dreaded Rainbow, Back to the Future. This game, another LJN, dreaded title that, once again, is not warranted. AVGN, I love me some angry video game nerd, just shits on this game, but I love playing it. Jaws. Simple and to the point. Drive your boat, shoot the fish. Yeah, I can beat this game in under 8 minutes, and I beat it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, but each time is as fun as the last. Sprinkle in a little bit of that RPG power-up mechanic that I like, along with the yellow submarine, and it's on. The ominous music taxing your nerves as you try to stab Jaws with your boat is a nice touch, and the blood, when you finally do, is the cherry on top. So number 12 on the list is getting back into that territory that's not going to make you want to leave and unsub my channel. And that is none other than a game I love playing. I love the title music and the soundtrack, Kid Icarus. So let's start with the music. The music is the very first thing that pops into my mind when I hear the words Kid Icarus. I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking by any means, but if this is the very first time you're hearing it, you know what I mean. Music aside, I like everything else about this game. Sprites, graphics, controls, gameplay. You know I obviously love the RPG mechanics, and it has a huge library of very unique and iconic enemies. Aside from some of the first huge bosses I'd ever encountered, you've got one of my all-time favorite, the dreaded Eggplant Wizards. After platforming my way through the initial vertical stages, I will never fail to recall my mind being blown when I reached the first fortress. We just went from a scrolling platformer to a maze explorer. Keep in mind, at this time, early in the Nintendo's life, I don't think I'd ever played Metroid, and maybe not even Zelda. So I thought this was extra cool. And you've all played the game, you know how good it is. That is just some of the reasons why Kid Icarus is number 12 on my list of Nintendo games. The last game for this list is the absolute most addicting Nintendo game, if not video game, I have played of all time. You know what I'm going to say. You all know what I'm going to say. Tetris. I remember the very first time I ever laid eyes on Tetris. It was the arcade cabinet, which is more like the Tengen version, not the Nintendo one. was at a restaurant right by my grandma's house. I think I had 1/4. I was pretty young. I played me some Tetris, and from that day on, I was hooked. Now, Tetris is not very visually pleasing. The music in this game, iconic. Everyone knows it once you hear it, stuck in your head all day. So it's actually rather taxing on your nerves, but I love playing me some Tetris. I dare you to put this game in and not have the controller in your hand for at least a half an hour, if not more. Flat out, Tetris is the most addicting gameplay of any game I have ever played and probably will ever. If there's a game more fun to pick up and play than Tetris, please let me know in the comments. Or maybe not, because I can't afford to stay up all night and play video games anymore. So that's back in the day, gamers. Top 20 to 11 Nintendo games of all time. So you watch the second video, 10 through 1, and you don't say, nah, that one was too fucked up, I don't even want to know. This was a little stranger. These back 10 were a little stranger than the top 10. Top 10's still good, real good. The best 10 as a matter of fact. But there's a lot more games on there you're going to relate to. But I'm still guessing that it's a lot different than anyone else's top 10. So thanks for tuning into my channel. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Stay tuned for part 2 for my top 10 NES games all time. But until then, keep it retro!